Every forest has its secrets, but some don't want them found. This one they call the Whispering Woods, a place where the missing aren't lost, they're taken. For decades, the local police have used one phrase: vanished without a trace. But what if the trace is still there, just invisible? Tonight, we step past that warning sign, past the point of no return. Are you ready to see what they found, or what found them? A sudden, sharp crack of a dry branch is heard, then silence. The true nightmare began not in a forest, but in the sterile quiet of a film archive. This is where a historian, let's call him the archivist, stumbled upon a file marked deleted, permanent. It was a master reel for a 1950s children's cartoon called Mr. Friendly's Happy Home. The name itself is a cruel joke. The film had been erased from history after a series of truly disturbing events involving its young viewers. The archivist, a man hardened by years of strange discoveries, felt a familiar chill, but he dismissed it. He thought, just a bizarre historical oddity, perhaps a poorly made censorship nightmare. He was tragically wrong. What he had found was not just a piece of film history, but a doorway into something deeply malevolent. He had no idea the terrifying consequences of merely pressing play on this particular reel. When the archivist finally got the reel to play on an antique projector, the opening sequence initially felt normal. It was a charming, if cheaply made, vintage cartoon, complete with scratchy audio and simple animation. Yet, something was fundamentally off. The soundtrack was pitched unnaturally high, like a painful, constant squeal just at the edge of hearing, and the colors were strangely muted, almost sickly. Then, Mr. Friendly appeared. His design was disturbing. His oversized grin conveyed a hungry, sickening anticipation rather than joy. He looked directly at the camera, breaking the fourth wall in a way that was less playful and more predatory. The episode wasn't a narrative story. It was a deeply disturbing lesson. Mr. Friendly wasn't teaching shapes or numbers to the children. Instead, he spoke in rhythmic, sing-song rhymes about going to sleep and never waking up again. He used simple, colorful diagrams to illustrate various methods. The archivist later reported that the whole thing felt like a macabre, instructional video disguised in saccharine sweetness. It was like watching a monster slowly teaching a child how to tie a lethal knot, all while giggling with false innocence. He immediately tried to stop the film, but the antique projector suddenly jammed, forcing him to witness the first few terrifying minutes against his will, feeling an immense pressure build in the room. The most disturbing and concrete evidence lies in the police reports recovered from the late 1950s. The common link in every tragic incident? All children who disappeared or were found under horrific circumstances had watched Mr. Friendly. The very first identified victim was a 7-year-old girl named Elara. Her mother discovered her standing precariously atop a rickety chair in their dark, secluded attic, attempting to reach one of the wooden rafters. Elara was not responsive. She was merely reciting one of Mr. Friendly's sickening rhymes. "The rope is your friend for a sleepy end." Her eyes were disturbingly blank, completely unfocused, as if her mind was elsewhere, occupied by the cartoon's lesson. She was clearly not acting on her own free will. We managed to find a preserved fragment of a police interview from that disturbing era. It involved a young boy who was found wandering perilously close to a cliff's edge. He managed to utter one thing before collapsing from exhaustion and fear. Mr. Friendly whispered. The skeptical detectives initially thought the child was simply delirious from shock. However, the recovered audio tape of the interview is utterly chilling. Beneath the boy's strained, shallow breathing, there is a distinct, almost subliminal second voice present in the recording. It's a cheerful, high-pitched giggle, the exact same sound from the cartoon, that abruptly cuts off with a sickening sound, like tearing fabric or paper. The entity was clearly right there, hiding in the audio frequency, confirming the child's desperate testimony. As the terror spread, parents began finding strange, chilling artwork. These were not the usual, happy, colorful, childlike scribbles. They were highly detailed, graphic depictions of their own eventual death, often drawn in a style entirely foreign to the child's usual method. These drawings were left conspicuously on the children's pillows or tucked into their school books as a silent, terrifying warning. One mother swore her son, who exclusively used colored pencils, suddenly used thick, black charcoal, a medium they didn't even own, to draw a specific, detailed pattern on their basement floor. When police investigated the case after the child disappeared, they later found a freshly disturbed section of earth exactly where the pattern was drawn, suggesting someone or something was using the children's hands to document its planned horrors. The entity in the cartoon was not just teaching. It was directly instructing and preparing its viewers. The archivist noted that the behavior of the entire cartoon dramatically and violently shifted exactly 6 minutes and 3 seconds into the episode. At that threshold, the colors on the screen abruptly inverted to a painful, flashing, negative image. The happy, sickeningly sweet music shifted into a slow, reversed, guttural drone that instantly made the archivist cover his ears. And Mr. Friendly, who had been smiling with that terrible, hungry grin, suddenly stopped. His face twisted into a grotesque, exaggerated expression, and he began to weep. But this wasn't weeping out of sadness. It was a loud, high-pitched, painful, and mocking cry that sounded as though it was physically tearing the cartoon's audio track apart. The sudden violent shift felt less like a cartoon error and more like a deliberate opening into true psychological horror. The horrific, mocking weeping lasted only 30 seconds before it cut off with a shocking finality. Then, Mr. Friendly's voice returned. It was no longer high-pitched or cheerful. It was now clear, deep, and impossibly calm. A voice that spoke directly to the core of the archivist's fear. He was no longer using simple rhymes. He began giving precise, technical instructions, speaking almost like a professional reading from a manual. The final 5 minutes of the cartoon contained information that was clearly not for a child, detailing specific pressure points on the body, discussing dangerous dosages of common household items, and the exact tools needed for self-termination. But the ultimate, soul-crushing moment came when Mr. Friendly looked directly at the screen and whispered the archivist's real, full name, proving the tape was somehow directly aware of its new sole viewer. The terrifying, technical instructions continued until the film physically ran out. The projector suddenly ground to a shuddering halt, and on the screen was only the final, still frame. It was just Mr. Friendly's face, filling the entire frame. His eyes had transformed into red, glowing embers, and his wide, manic grin was replaced by a neutral, expectant, and chillingly knowledgeable expression. The archivist later confessed he felt a sudden, crushing physical and psychological weight. He stated, "I felt like I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was looking into him, and he was looking back, deep into my soul." He became convinced that the cartoon character was no longer just an image on a film. It was an active, malevolent presence. His hands shook violently as he reached out to remove the reel, but the encounter had already marked him permanently. The police report from the archivist's own case confirms that he never showed the full, corrupted film to anyone else. He was desperate and acted quickly, destroying the reel entirely, burning it until only fine ash remained in a steel drum. But his relief was short-lived. The destruction of the physical film didn't mean the destruction of it. He quickly started seeing the character in his reflections. A fleeting, yellow shape in the corner of a mirror. He began hearing the high-pitched, unsettling giggle in moments of complete silence, and he found the black charcoal marks on his own bedroom wall. He knew the lesson had been fully absorbed, and it wasn't just for the children of the 50s. Once you see the full 11 minutes, the lesson stays with you. It transforms into a pervasive, constant suggestion, a comforting, malignant whisper in the back of your mind, telling you the final steps. We managed to recover digital copies of the first 6 minutes of Mr. Friendly's happy home from a heavily encrypted and classified government database, confirming the archivist's account of the sheer terror it contained. We felt compelled to share this part of the truth, as history deserves to know what was hidden and why the cartoon was deleted. But we refuse to show the remaining 5 minutes of instruction. We can't, in good conscience, distribute that information. If you want to see the terrifying truth of the cartoon's opening minutes and hear the complete, documented story of the children who disappeared? Hit the like button to permanently lock this story away and keep this secret contained. And subscribe if you dare to continue facing the dark, forgotten archives we uncover next. Thank you for watching, and sweet dreams.